Dynasty price check time. It is Thursday, March 6th. I got to say the date. So if we post this later on, people know that we're recording this on March 6th. So if anything crazy happens after that, that's why we don't talk about it. And we are talking about 2 tight ends today, doing a little bit of a Dynasty price check. We'll be doing these all offseason, heading up into probably until August. We'll be doing these. So and we're starting off with Dalton Kincaid, who's pointing right at me in that graphic that I put. He's 25 and a half years old almost. Tight end 8, according to Keep Trade Cut. You see the numbers his first 2 years. Tight end 15 in points per game. All of these are half PPR numbers. Tight end 15 in points per game. Tight end 22 in points per game. And so we're talking about Dalton Kincaid. A lot of people had him as like, man, what, a top 3 guy? I would assume he got pretty high when he was first drafted to the Bills. So how are you feeling about Kincaid? You still have hope? Or is he just falling into that giant category of tight ends where it's like they don't really mean too much, and he's kind of near the top of the tier of those guys?
Yeah, I think that's about right. Like, I don't have a lot of faith he's going to be a difference maker, but he does have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. It's on a good scoring offense. It's just he's not as involved as we would like. And I don't know what to make of that, because they definitely needed him last year. And like we were just talking about before we got on here, it's like, I wonder how much injury played a factor in that in the second half of the season, basically starting week 11 when he missed. But he was still on pace for about 100 targets, but only about 60 catches, something like that, and about 600 yards. And the touchdowns just weren't there, just like they weren't the first year. Seems like that stuff tends to go everywhere else. Obviously, James Cook had a big touchdown year. So it's kind of tough having a whole lot of positive to say. I think I kind of front loaded that with, the offense, the need, and the quarterback, but not feeling great.
No, not at all. Like it's very discouraging when you're worse the next year, when we expect you to take that next step and the opportunity was there, like you mentioned, who was the wide receiver 1 for this team? They didn't really have one. I mean, Shakir, who's a nice player, he's not an alpha number 1. They traded for Amari Cooper. Mac Hollins was there. Curtis Samuel didn't do much. Like, this was all made out for Kincaid. And yeah, I was ready to be like 100% I'm out on this guy. He's at the top of the tier. And I'm still kind of out in the sense of like, I'm going to look to down tier because I don't think he's going to be that difference maker. But, was potentially playing through injury the last 3 weeks of the season. But that being said, like, even the first 9 games, he was better, tight end 11 in total points, but he was still worse than he was the year before. Those first 9 weeks before he got hurt. He was averaging 37 yards a game and 3.5 catches. So that's down from what he was doing his rookie year, where he averaged 42 yards a game and 4.5 catches. So yeah, I think I'm just out. And if anyone wants to pay much for me, I mean, first I'll be rushing to take that, but even a couple of seconds I might take, and even maybe potentially an early second in this draft. If I play, in a super flex league, I might just cash out and go, but I'm really looking to down tier, potentially to the guy we're going to talk about next. But yeah, it's discouraging. It definitely is. And one of the big things is, it's going to come into play when we do talk about the next guy, is the snap percentage is not quite there for him. On the season, it's 56.7. Now, he was a lot lower. Obviously, the game he got hurt, he missed 3/4 of the game. And then coming back from the injury, he was never over 50% snap share. But even before, like, he started off well, 84%, but then 42, 53, 62, 62, 79, 72, 53, 78. Just like not consistent enough But I do know that the Bills were like blowing people out as well. And I think Josh Allen, like, if you add up all the quarters he rested, like it was like over 2 games or something worth of quarters. So that could come into play as well. I don't know. It's just, is he just one of those guys that's like he's the big slot type of players, doesn't do all the stuff that tight ends need to do, so he's off the field a little bit more than we want, and he's just not quite at that level of like, to make up for it in terms of target share. So, I mean, would you take? Do you kind of agree with me? I mean, any first and then like maybe an early second in this year's draft, or do you think that's kind of like, nah, just take my chances with Kincaid and see what happens?
I'm probably still holding him at that price. The second, that is. But I know we talk about this every now and then. It's like, well, what's the real difference between 112 and 201? It is psychological more than anything. Especially like when you get to that part of the draft, usually you should probably have a couple of guys in mind that you're okay with going with.
Yeah. What if like the tight end 3 sitting there? So we assume the top 2, Warren and Loveland, are going to be gone. They're probably going to be first round picks in this upcoming draft. Let's just say like the tight end 3, who we don't know for sure who that is yet, but maybe whoever it is sitting there, and someone offers you, that pick where you can replace Kincaid for that tight end 3, and let's just say he goes to a decent spot, and then maybe they throw in like a 26th third or a 4th round pick in this draft. Like, are you just going to say, you know what, I'll take my chances and I'll kind of replace them and see what happens, re-roll, or still kind of holding out on Kincaid?
I think I'd still hold out on Kincaid. Like, I'm fine with, again, partially because of the offense and everything. Sometimes these guys take a few years to develop. I don't know how much longer Dawson Knox is going to be there. I actually just pulled him up to see really what he did. Because I kind of mentioned like, I feel like the touchdowns kind of go to him. Well, that's wrong. Like, he didn't get any touchdowns either. Yeah, it was just kind of a weird year for the Bills.
He was playing a decent amount. He actually played, percentage wise, he actually played more snaps than Kincaid. Obviously, when Kincaid missed time, he was playing a lot more, but he was still like even over 50 consistently.
Yeah, he was over 50% basically every single game. The 2 he was under is 48 and 49. So just call it 50% or more of the snaps. So that definitely eats into it. I remember when Kincaid came into the league, it was kind of like, well, like there were some questions about his blocking, which you kind of mentioned in passing, like as far as like, well, maybe he doesn't do everything that he needs to do. And I remember my brother-in-law kind of saying like, well, if he can't block, then that just means he's going to catch the ball. And it's like, well, it doesn't always work like that, when guys are leaving the field, especially like with like momentum on the drive and stuff. So
yeah, and you hear that a lot with like the Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland debate, because Loveland's definitely more of a, a Dalton Kincaid like tight end, whereas Warren is more of that traditional blocking guy, but also can catch. And yeah, you need to be on the field. Like, if tight ends and wide receivers, if you're not playing at least 70%, like it's really hard to rely on you. Like Mike Gesicki's the perfect example. It's like, man, why can't Mike Gesicki just be always good? It's like this guy, we know he's probably one of the best, just if we're talking about pure pass catching tight ends, he's probably up there in like the top 10. And he had a good season this year, but it was like he would do 7 for 91 and he would follow it up for 1 target, -9 yards. That's terrible. But he'll get 1 target, 2 targets, 0 targets, 9 targets, 7 catches, and then 1 target, 1 catch, like, because he doesn't play enough. You look at his snap share, he's under 50% for the season. I'm kind of fearing that maybe Kincaid's one of those guys. He'll play it a little bit more than that, but I don't know, man. And Dawson Knox, by the way, it looks like, I mean, they're not going to move off of him this year because the dead cap's just way too much. Doesn't make sense. So you got 1 more year of Dawson Knox there too, who does do kind of that dirty work, by the way.
Kincaid can be an interesting piece. Like I'm thinking, tight end premium for this like thought process right here. Not everything we just said, but just kind of like he might be an interesting person to use to tier up. Actually, like try and go get. There's not a whole lot of guys significantly older than him. It's basically George Kittle that is like ranked above him. I wonder what a deal like that would look like going from Kincaid to Kittle, which, obviously that just flipped during this season. Obviously, George Kittle, he's 6 years older. Yeah. He's 6 years older, but, he is one of those guys who can win you weeks, and it doesn't even have to be tight end premium to do that. And kind of getting back to what we were saying, it's like I always heard that about Kittle in general, especially when Kelsey was in his heyday. It's like, well, George Kittle's like the best. A lot of people considered him the best actual like NFL tight end, even when Kelsey was doing all like during his amazing seasons a few years ago, for that stretch. Like George Kittle was always talked about in the way where it's like, well, as an actual NFL tight end, like he's like better kind of a thing, and a lot of that has to do with like what else he does on the field, which keeps him there, keeps him on the field.
And you can be like, you don't have to be an amazing elite blocker, to necessarily be out there. Like Zach Ertz comes to mind. Like, I don't really necessarily watch a lot of Zach Ertz like run blocking, but I would assume, I think throughout his career, he wasn't considered this amazing run blocker, but he did enough. You just need to be able to do enough to warrant you to be out on the field. So I don't know. It is interesting. The injury stuff does kind of like makes me hesitate for a second. But by the way, for what it's worth, the third tight end right now is tight end 31 on the list. So I think it's just more of, we don't really know who the third tight end is yet. So that will change once they get drafted. Cole Kmet, as I can get Kincaid's finger out of my face. Cole Kmet here, slightly older than Kincaid by half a year, essentially, which I was a little bit surprised. Tight end 18, according to Keep Trade Cut. See the numbers there? It's a little cut off, but did have a good year in 2023 in points per game. Had a down year this year. He is one of those guys that he plays every single snap. Like you look at his snap share, and it's him and like Cade Otton, where it's like literally this year was actually a little bit lower, 87.5% though he played for the entire year. You look at like 2023 snap share, like he's in the 90s a lot. So he's out there all the time. And for that reason, he's probably going to give you a solid production. He didn't do it so much this year, came in kind of spurts, had a good stretch there in the beginning of the year and then in the middle of the year, but then just kind of disappeared in a lot of games, especially near the end of the year. But he's a guy that I'm personally looking to potentially tear down to, from like a Kincaid, for example, a Tucker Kraft that we talked about, over a month ago now. Because I think they're going to, if they're healthy, I believe in the offense. I believe in Ben Johnson. I believe in Caleb. I know that you have two receivers there, so you're not going to be the second option on the team. But I still think touchdown wise, you can be pretty good. He's going to play all the time. He's going to be on this team for this year, and because he's going to be out there so much, he'll probably give you a pretty safe floor of like 4 to 6 catches. 3 to 5 catches, 40 to 60 yards, and the occasional touchdown more often than not. So. That's kind of how I feel about Kincaid, and I think the Bears' offense is just going to be good this year, which is obviously going to help him. But how are you feeling about him, knowing that at best, assuming they don't bring anyone else in, he's the third target on this team most likely? I mean, maybe he can be 2. That would be a little bit surprising because that mean Roma Dunze is probably a little bit of a bust then at that point. But anyways, how do you feel about Kincaid?
Yeah, Kmet. You said Kincaid a couple of times.
Yeah.
I let the first one slide, but I just don't want people to get confused. I mean, his graphics right there. Not great. I mean, like obviously coming off a down season, Tight end 7 the previous 2 seasons, obviously completely different team at that point. And that mostly came just like any tight end 7. Basically, it's like, oh, it came on the back of touchdowns. Not that he had crazy touchdown numbers, but tight end 7's never that exciting. Like he's not killing you, but he's not really helping you, which that's fine. That's what a lot of these guys are, kind of like in this area. And I'm given where he's ranked at tight end, was it 18?
18,
yeah. It's like that's a fine like area to tier down to, but like I don't know if you're quite famous for this yet, but he's definitely one of those guys. It's like I'll take basically any second round pick for him. That's like this. Yeah. That's how you always describe this group, but you haven't said it this big.
No, it's it's just, and it's not even trying to say like, oh, I think Kmet's going to be amazing is why I'm saying to tier down to him, but it's like, and when at the end of the year, when you actually look at it and you look at, unless you play in a pretty heavy tight end premium league, like most of these guys just really don't matter outside like the top 5 to 6, 7 guys, and there's not a whole lot of difference between tight end 8 and tight end 18 year to year. So
yeah, it's gonna take a touchdown basically to get double digits. It's basically what it comes down to for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, and that's just who they are. And so, like, I'll take my chances with Kmet and pick up extra pieces where I can use it, a starter that means something, or a trade, piece like a pick or something, and use it for acquiring whatever you want to do with it. Like, that's what I'll do, and I'll just be happy with Kmet. Like, I say it over and over. I won a Dynasty tight end premium league, and I literally started Tyler Higbee every single week. This was 2023, every single week except for his bye week, and I won the league. Just because if you're good everywhere else, the difference between Tyler Higbee in 2023 and whoever was tight end 7 that year, it wasn't that big. So, and I think Kmet's a solid player. I think he's a good player. I think he can do everything. I think the Ben Johnson offense is going to be better for Caleb. I believe in Caleb. So just look at the Lions, like, they were putting up with Amon-Ra and Jameson and even Laporta. Like, I think there's going to be 3 options on this team that can be good in the passing game. And I hope it's, Kmet's one of them. Maybe they add a weapon. They definitely could.
Yeah. What tight end went there? He was from the Chargers or the Rams, I feel like.
Oh, Gerald Everett went there.
Yeah, Gerald Everett. That's right. Well, he's not on the team now, or at least he's not listed on their depth chart on Sleeper.
Yeah. We thought it was going to be a thing, and then it went away after like week 1. He was a thing like week 1. I think he actually outsnapped Kmet, or he played like a huge percentage of it and then just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, and they were just like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's all well and good. Are you taking – all right, you're going from Kincaid down to Kmet. Is the 212 enough for you?
Probably not, because if Kmet does hit, if Kincaid, I keep messing it up. I messed it up the opposite way there. If Kincaid does like have a good year next year, he is going to go up in value, right? Like, let's just say both Kincaid and Kmet have very similar seasons. Let's just say they both have low end tight end 1 or mid tight end 1 seasons. Kincaid's going to go up way more in value. So I'd probably need a little bit more than the 212. Mid second round in this draft. I think early to mid second round picks are good in this draft. So I'd probably do that. And I think I'm confident I can get a starter in this draft with that. But yeah, 212 I think is a little bit too late.
Okay. I wanted to start there and then move up, but
I think already said it.
Yeah. What's that?
Yeah. I kind of already said what I like. 205, 206, 206.
Okay. So turn the screws and offer you 210. Got it.
Depends on who's there,
Yeah.
But So yeah, I mean, I like Kincaid. I think he can be good. I like Kmet. I think he's just a better complete tight end. It's just, especially since they changed their offense. Whenever the Bills changed their offense with Joe Brady, middle of the 2023 season, they went to this more run heavy offense, which caters more to having those blocking tight ends out there as well. So I'm not even sure how much he fits like the scheme necessarily. Um, so that's a whole nother issue with Kincaid. So, but again, there's still that upside, and there's still that like, okay, he's still, a year away from, he was tight end 2 is what he got up to, tight end 3, tight end 2. So he's still like a year removed from that. So like, it doesn't take much for him to get back into like that top 5. So that's where I still value him and still want a pretty good piece in return if I am down tiering from him.
Sure. I'm just looking at the guys that are below him. It's like the rookies from last year with Sennett and Jatavian Sanders right behind him. Evan Ingram, who just got cut. Goddard's actually behind him, and Kelsey. Man, Kelsey's fallen. He already said he's going to play.
I know.
But we saw what, he wasn't anything near his usual self, even though he still finished tight end 5 or something.
Yeah. Well, Keep Trade Cut has a weird, I don't know if there's like a bug going on, but if you look at like all the positions, like everyone's falling, but no one's rising, which doesn't.
Well, it's because the rookies got put in.
Yeah, but even the rookies are falling. Like, but no one has a green arrow. Like, if you click on running backs, it's literally the top 3 are zeros, and then everyone else is red except for like Cam Scattaboo at RB30. There's like literally no one moving up spots. Is that possible? Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it probably has to do with how far back they look to determine if someone's falling, which is probably a month, and then rookies got added less than a month ago, something like that.
Yeah. But that is it for the tight ends. We will be back talking about some other position, probably running backs is what you'll see next. So appreciate everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all in that video.